E ngā mana, e ngā reo e rauranga tira mā, tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai, hara mai, ki tēnei kōrero whakahirahira. Welcome, welcome, thrice welcome. My name is Julian Wilcox. I'm one of the hosts for the virtual APEC CEO Summit 2021. It is great to have you with us here on what is going to be a very special conversation, I think, a very special VIP dialogue where we will look at the role of technology in economic recovery and transformation. And to discuss this very important topic, we have two very esteemed guests indeed. We are joined by Vanessa Sorenson, who is the Managing Director for Microsoft New Zealand. You can see her online there now. Vanessa joined Microsoft in October 2017 after more than 2 decades at Spark, New Zealand's largest telecommunications company, and she is a noted champion of diversity and inclusion across the ICT industry, encouraging change, fostering diversity and inclusion, driven by the belief that diversity and inclusion is not optional but essential. Our second panellist is Hafimi Abdul Haadii, the Executive Director of LVK Group of Companies. Now, Hafimi spent her formative years in Brunei, New Zealand and Australia. I think she went to primary school, actually, in New Zealand previously. She is an appointed member of the Legislative of Brunei Darussalam since 2016. And is the chair of the Competition Commission of Brunei Darussalam since 2018, a champion for young entrepreneurs. Hafimi is a founding member of the Young Entrepreneurs Association of Brunei and helped start ASEAN China Young Entrepreneurs Forum. It is great to have you both here. Welcome.
Kia ora. Welcome.
Kia ora.
Kia ora and welcome. Our panellists bring considerable international expertise, and so I encourage you to use this opportunity to raise any questions that you might have via the chat function, or even feedback, or even some thoughts as well as you make your way through this conversation, as you make your way through this very special VIP dialogue. If you've got any questions, put them on the chat function and I'll post them to either Vanessa or Hafimi. Okay, let's get into it. We'll start with you, Hafimi, and you may have already actually answered this question in the previous panel discussion with Dr. Shiro Armstrong and with Jamie, but I'm going to ask it again anyway. We've all experienced COVID-19 and the acceleration and digital adoption, changing the way we live, work, the way in which we meet, the nostril flaring and all that kind of stuff that we've seen online that was mentioned earlier. How have you seen this play out in Brunei?
Thanks, Julian. It's a pleasure again to see you, and also thank you to Vanessa to really sharing in her sphere of influence. In Brunei, I think the acceleration of digitalization has been overall a very good thing. It's put, as they would say, fire under the belly, and to really get us to move in a manner that is befitting for how do we move in the future with COVID. I think a lot of that usage of the word the new normal, I think we need to chuck that out. We actually need to just keep moving forward. With digitalization, I think the importance is we've actually brought the efficiency of services, be they public or private. That's first and foremost, I think, something that's been very important. It's actually allowed and enabled more creativity to come through within the community in how do you deliver services, how do you conduct your general business activity. And I think also at the same time, it's allowed in a sense a reset in the way opportunities are presented. So I think those are the three main driving factors that I think has been the positive. And as mentioned in the previous panel earlier on today, is the fact that some of the challenges still remain, but the fact that the challenges have come to the forefront in such a manner as well, obviously allows us to meet those challenges. We don't hide them under the carpet. We deal with them as and when, and how do we adapt as we move forward. Thank you, Julian.
That's all good of me. I'm going to pick up on a couple of things later on, if that's okay. Vanessa, I'd like to bring you in. Obviously, with Microsoft, you've seen this acceleration that Hafimi has been talking about. So again, I'll ask the same question, if that's okay. With COVID-19 and digital adoption, again, how's this played out from a Microsoft perspective, but also across, obviously, the APEC region?
Yeah, look, thanks, Julian. And yeah, share very, very similar thoughts to Hafini. Look, really, we saw more digital transformation happen in 2 weeks than we probably would have in 2 years. And I think it's just been the rate of adoption because we had to. And I think what we really need to learn is this is the new norm. Like we've got to keep stepping forward rather than going back to how things were. You know, you think of those projects that took countless years and cost multi-million dollars, but people actually just had to do it. And guess what? They worked and they didn't actually cost multi-millions. And it really, really brought teams together, whether you were a frontline worker or who would have imagined our local banking sector doing more mortgages and work than ever during lockdown when all of their branch people had to work from home. So I look at the opportunity that we've now embraced this transformation. We have to keep going forward. And I think from our perspective, it works. We know that it's reliable, and it's not a matter of if, it's keep going. And I think that's the strongest focus that we're trying. And I love actually the smaller stories of incredible assistance with tech. It's actually how quickly we can get products and things into the hands of those frontline workers that before were leveraging paper, and now, because of, again, the no touch zone, had to have it delivered on an iPhone or an iPad. So there's just so many incredible upside stories that we've seen as well.
You've talked about the upside, Vanessa. Hafimi has mentioned the small and the micro. So you mentioned the upsides. Let's talk about the drawbacks that we've seen from this rapid, accelerated digitisation, or digitalisation, as it's mentioned by others. What are some of the drawbacks, Vanessa?
Look, I can't really name a few, to be honest. I think it's some of that rapid adoption. We've seen some clients have to go back and do a few things. But again, the cost of taking so much longer, that return on investment has worked. You know, I think now we have such a reliance on tech. And I mean from networks to our cloud provider, you know, you name it. And so it's when there's a glitch, we so rely on the tech. And so there's no longer, you know, hey, we can afford to be down for an hour or two. Even 1 minute causes concern. So I think it's really the coming together of, you know, the tech and spending the time on your architecture to understand if something does break, where is that needle in the haystack? So you can really, really quickly step up again. You know, for us, seeing the adoption of Teams, and in fact, this whole conference running on Teams, you know, a couple of years ago, it was still fairly new and people saying, would I adopt it? We can't imagine life now without this technology. And, you know, we can work from anywhere. Work is a place to go, not a thing, you know, it's no longer driven by going somewhere because of the tool set. So very few downsides. I'd actually say the biggest downside has actually been fatigue online. People's well-being, to be honest. Days have stretched out longer, doing it all behind a screen. You know, I think many people are missing that traffic driving into the city because it was your downtime to sing along to the radio. So it's more of a humanistic perspective, I believe, and we have to look after our well-being to make sure we don't burn out.
I've been reliably told by the good people of Christchurch they don't miss my singing voice at 5:30 in the afternoon, Vanessa. Hafimi, if I can come back to you, you mentioned one of the drawbacks earlier was that with the rapid acceleration has also come the increase in disparity. Can you talk further about that for us?
Well, I guess in our experience in Brunei, we realized that very quickly on when, especially within the education system, when schools had to go online. And then you suddenly realize that not everybody had access to devices, albeit it's proliferated all over the place, but it also showed that societal stratification. So I think that's been something that has been sort of an eye-opener for me personally, but also to a bigger part of the community, that sometimes we take a lot of these things for granted. So that's probably one thing. The second is the access, just the connectivity access, the affordability part of it. If you're somebody that's living hand to mouth on a day-by-day basis, and, you know, shock horror, even in Brunei, we still have, you know, this segment of society, it then makes you realign your focus. And I guess from a governmental point of view, it's to then relook your programs to actually, are your programs really fulfilling the accessibility for all segments of the community? So I think that's one of the disparities that has been shock horror, but at the same time, again, confronting in the challenge, but finding ways to settle that matter. So you got a lot of the community that came behind it, from corporates all the way just to individuals who were donating devices, donating even airtime. You know, it was as simple as that even if you donated a bit of airtime to someone, that helped them access their online schooling material, et cetera. And at the same time, we also, you know, we got the national bodies behind it, the public television station. It became the learning channel again, you know, compared to when pre-internet, you know, that's where you got your information. So I think they reversed the way the innovation came in through there, because they said, okay, you know what, most people are looking at Netflix and all this other stuff. I'm going to turn most of my free to air into the education channel. So refocusing back, where are the core principles to hit the majority of the population? So I think that's been one huge challenge, and that's been one eye-opener for the whole country, not just for those of us in business, Julian.
You have mentioned the exacerbated digital divide and also the need to be able to bridge that gap, and you mentioned that previously before as well. What role should technology therefore continue to play, in your view, Hafimi, in creating a more inclusive, sustainable economy going forward? How can that be done in your view?
I think, and if I were to take a soundbite, you know, from Microsoft, it's the cloud for global good. I think when we put in place the infrastructure, accessibility is crucial, affordable accessibility. We know things can't be for free all the time, because how are you going to sustain? That's the reality of life. So how do you match that interconnectivity between the private sector and the public sector, where we all actually come together, together with civil society? We run a little program at the moment as a pilot. And we're actually whereby, you know, we have volunteers that come forward to actually assist the villagers to register their companies, even something as simple as that. And that's where technology has come in to really help. You don't actually have to go to a government office to register your business, right? You can actually just get it done online, paid for, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's one thing that's been good. The delivery of services, the basic services that everyone should have access to. And I hope we keep pushing forward to that. And I hope that more and more of the rollouts under the digital economy master plan that Brunei has in place will actually enable that to happen. Again, to bridge that digital divide. The education has been crucial, and we're relooking a lot of the digital literacy. You know, before the common buzzword was financial literacy, now it's digital literacy. And I think there's a third one creeping on soon with environmental literacy to come along. Hope that answers the question, Julian.
No, thank you, and I appreciate that. And actually, Vanessa, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you the same question, because it is important. As a champion of diversity and inclusion, the ongoing role that technology should play in creating that more inclusive, sustainable society. Can you give us some examples of that as well?
Yeah, 100%. And Hafimi, it's so similar here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and across with our friends in Australia and Asia Pacific wide around that divide. And, you know, I think it's not just about getting out those PCs, it's the connectivity. So it's okay to have a device, but if you can't connect to anything, then you're stuck. And so something I'm most proud of is we've just launched 10K Wahine here in New Zealand, which is to inspire 10,000 females to consider a role in tech. Because we've seen, even my own daughter who's 15, I say, would you consider a role in tech? Oh, it's pretty boring. You know, it's kind of for the engineers and the geeks. And I'm like, hey, look at me. I'm not one of those. And so it's more, how do we shift the way they think about it? And I think if everyone's a digital native, because let's face it, most people have an iPhone or some sort of device. So 10K Wahine is for women of all ages, school age, people coming out of university and maybe taking a law degree and wanting to pivot to digital, but also more importantly for those females that actually have been displaced through COVID. A great example through this plan is two incredible wahine here in New Zealand. One was a flight attendant and the other ran her own tourism company, and both were displaced. And so they now are interns with PwC through our 10K Wahine to be equipped, get certified, and they would never consider going back to the old roles they had. You know, their earning wage has gone up. They're so inspired by what digital technology provides, and their eyes are open about how big of an opportunity. It's not just coding. It's not just the geek stuff. So, you know, I'm very passionate about this. All of our whānau in New Zealand are getting behind our women in tech, our Digi Girls, our Māori and Pacifica work, where we partner and employ, because diversity and inclusiveness is having people from all walks of life. And so that's the opportunity. And it's just such an exciting industry. I just want to encourage more and more to consider moving forward into it.
And are those pathways sustainable, Vanessa, in the examples that you provided to us? There is sustainability and pathways and pipelines through as a result of these internships that have been developed?
Absolutely, Julian. It's, you know, what we are finding is our ads weren't very diverse and inclusiveness when the way we were writing them. You know, gone are the days of needing that 10-year degree. We want to encourage people that want to learn. You know, we want the people that are confident to go, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot, and we can train them. But it isn't easy. I think, you know, so for some of our interns, coming into our corporate office is quite scary. So we've actually been on our own journey. We're rewriting our ads. Our internship program puts mentors around these whānau, and including our amazing partnership with Tupatoa, who they help mentor these young adults, because it's an up-down journey, right? I think starting any job is, to be honest. And I think when you enter tech and you're around so many bright people, you can very quickly think, am I good enough? Can I do this? And I'm saying, well, yes, you are, and give it a go. And we're going to put all the guardrails around you possible for you to succeed. And that is my hopes and dreams for New Zealand. We're building data centres in this country. The jobs and opportunities, including startup companies, is next level. But we're going to have a tech shortage. So we actually have to do something about this. So I'm so proud of the work that our team are doing, and I speak to our interns all the time, and it is a journey, but they feel extremely supported, and just watching them going from strength to strength is what lights up my heart.
Hafimi, another phenomenon we've seen as a result of COVID is the remote working phenomenon, that there has been an increase in remote working as a result of the pandemic. What are some of the pitfalls, and in particular some insights you might be able to provide from the Brunei perspective about some of the pitfalls of this increase in remote working?
Well, I guess being a mum, being a wife at the same time, it's how do you balance the homework with the homework, right? I think very fortunate. I don't have little ones. I have grown ones already, but I think that part is still a challenge. How does the cultural context work when you're doing remote or work from home? Does it then enable a better relationship with a spouse? Do you then balance and and give yourself equal amounts of time to be yourself, to be a family unit, and at the same time be that extended support to the rest of your family? So I think that part has been a constant question. When you do the work from home, when is your home time and when is your work time? So I think people who have set boundaries for themselves, they set that up very quickly. But at the same time, we still understand that there needs to be some physical support. I think I heard a story from a friend whereby within their street, they set up a little mini, like a mini creche or a mini support group. So they take turns, then that's how the neighborhood works for us here in Brunei. But again, that part I haven't been able to encounter or overcome. But there is still, how do you maintain that balance? I think that's something that we still need to understand. As an employer, obviously, we give a lot of space to our employees, because when there has to be urgent family time or even just family time full stop, I think we need to respect that. And I think as employers, we still need to push that along a little bit more. I think in the earlier session, Dr. Shiro was mentioning about inputs, outputs. How do you balance that when you're in a remote work situation? So some of the boundaries have to still be in place, regardless of whether you're in the office or whether you're at home. So if we treat ourselves with a little bit of discipline in that stage, hopefully we'll all come out the better. A friend of mine, he runs a company in Indonesia, and they've shifted to a 4-day work week. And as Jamie said, his productivity has already gone up 25%. So maybe it's a good thing, right?
I'm going to actually ask both of you about that point. And I'll start with you, Hafimi. So is a 4-day week something that you are actively considering with your employees, your organisations at the moment? And then I might ask the same question, or indeed some other resolutions you might be looking at Microsoft, Vanessa. But first of all, to you, Hafimi.
I guess we work we work a 5-day week normally, because we are in my main company is in construction. So but we have a rotating shift. So what we've done is obviously with the business continuity plans, we might actually put that into a permanent scenario whereby you have the shifts. When you have the shifts working, it gives the employee a bit more flexibility to arrange their lives a bit better, and whether that fits comfortably with where the company operates. For some have actually put their hand up and said, look, you know what? We don't want to come back to the office anymore. We feel that we can work more productively. So we've been quite flexible in doing that, and still maintaining the level of productivity, if not more, from the employees. So I think I've not seen anything but positives from a lot of what has happened over the past year and a half.
Vanessa, I see a lot of nodding there from you, from Microsoft New Zealand. I mean, what will you retain, maintain, potentially increase as a result of what we've seen from remote working? What changes might you make?
Well, gone are the days, Julian, of 9 to 5 in the office. Let's face it, if people weren't working, they weren't even if they were in the office. And I think it comes down to trust. We have to trust our people. And, you know, I think I'm just so proud of what Microsoft's done at a global and local level. You know, we were all gifted 5 well-being days, which we're all encouraged to take just to focus on ourselves. We've got caregiver leave for people. I too don't have young children, but a lot of my team do. And watching that juggle, you know, my HR director with a new baby who's then not well, who's got to perform. This is the new norm. You know, if you've all seen the YouTube trip of the man who's on a call like this, and, you know, the child comes in and the nanny swoops in, or the mother, like, that's life. This is now an integrated world. And so from our perspective, we're just going to make sure we don't go back to how things were. Now, before COVID, we were already leveraging our tools. We're a global company, and you work what's going to work for you. And I think it's that human nature of, you know, do I have permission? And I think you've just got to look at your own organization. Do you trust your people? I do believe that there is a place for people to come together. You know, I think, you know, what does get missed is that, you know, think of all new starters joining the company that haven't met people. It isn't so easy through a screen. And the water cooler conversations, you know, I think the jokes and sometimes you can get something done quite quickly when you're passing somebody. So for us, we're just going to think about, when we can go back, what are some of the things like, you know, our company get-togethers? Let's do them on a Thursday afternoon and put nibbles on, and, you know, make it more welcoming. Our awards that we do, let's, you know, we'll still do them online, but, you know, let's make sure that our offices have got food and celebrations. You know, Māori Language Week, Pacifica Week, everything. We want to celebrate. And so I think it's going to be, well, it will be and continue to be a hybrid world for us. And I've actually just I get my energy going into work and seeing people. So for me, it's actually saying, you know what, some days getting through my training and some of the things I need to do, it actually does make more sense me doing that from home. So I think for some of us, it's the complete opposite.
Hey, can I just say, this is awesome. This is
an
awesome. Oh, sorry, Hafimi, you go. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Julian. Yeah, no. I just had one more item to add, and I guess this is from a planning perspective. It actually allows more people to stay within the environment that they grew up with. You know, you see a lot of that urban movement from the rural to the urban areas, and putting pressure on urban areas. But now with the benefit of remote working and better tools to give remote working, you can actually just stay in the place that you grew up and that you enjoyed being in. And that puts a lot of pressure. It takes a lot of pressure, but it gives better as you would say, better ability to then further build those areas and connect them, as opposed to everybody rushing into the city.
Yeah.
I think that's probably something that's really, really good, and it really helps plan out the equitable, balance in across the country. Thank you, Julian.
No, thank you, Hafimi. I appreciate it. I was just saying this is awesome. I'm sure people are really taking a lot out of this conversation. We've got a question come in actually from an audience member via the chat function. So thank you for posting via the chat function. This one is from Anusha Aluwalia, who is watching and says, Vanessa, ngā mihi, that she can attest to your incredible investment in interns and grads at Microsoft. But the question is this: what is your message, Vanessa, to business leaders on how best to invest in young people in rangatahi and future technology leaders?
We have to step up to the plate and go to them. This is now everything I was taught in my career about how to interview. If I look at Māori whānau for respect, it's about looking down. These are our waka kapahaka leaders who, again, may not have seen somebody in this type of role. And I think, Anusha, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud of our Aspire people, because it's that belief in yourself. And I think, my role is just to go, guess what, you can. I left school at a very young age, at 16. I'm not qualified, and I want to fly that flag and say, you can get there, but it is a tough road. And so for us, simple mechanisms like I meet up with our Aspires once a quarter. We openly share about the toughness, including myself. I think sometimes leaders, they just look like they're bulletproof, and you have to share that it's been a hard road. And then our younger generation go, okay, that isn't perfect. And, it's not the Instagram shot. So, I recommend you all to lean in. That person that you just think, man, there's something in them. I'm going to invest in them. And back to Hafini, what about our whānau and regions who want to stay working and living there? We've got proof that we can do that, and maybe a commitment to come to the head office once a month to meet people. We've just got to think and behave differently.
Hafimi, another question for you here. By the way, we're slowly but surely getting to the end, so I'm going to try and, that's because of my poor facilitation. But your advice has been amazing, so thank you both very much. And then I'll ask a question to both of you. Hafimi, we know that being digitally enabled is now essential for most businesses, even in the most traditional sectors. What are some of the challenges, do you think, businesses are facing in digital adoption and digital trade?
Well, I guess, I hate to use this word mindset, but that's always the commonality. But I think it's also the fear that when you move your business profile, when you move your business operation into a different realm, into a different medium, you could also lose a portion of your business. And that's the reality that we live in. So for those businesses that are always keen to want to evolve, there's only two ways to do it: by force, or by premeditation. The fact that you want to do it willingly. I think a lot of what has been given is the support system around that. How do you make sure that the employees and the employer actually has the right knowledge to then translate that into a digital structure? Not every business can be a digital business. Some businesses still have to have the bricks and mortar, as they would say, right? But do you then facilitate the process? Do you then make your back end a little bit more digitalized? Can you digitalize your accounting mechanisms? Can you digitalize your stock and trade? Baby steps like that are what makes the jump for a business. And you also have to deal with, don't forget, multi-generational businesses, family-owned businesses. It's very difficult to go from a business owner, how do you change their method of working into something that maybe their kids are more interactive with? So a lot of that, the support systems around that, I think, are being built. And at the same time, a lot of the sharing. I think the sharing, as Vanessa said, is crucial, because without understanding that, oh, there's somebody else who's gone through the same thing as I am going through now, it's how do you overcome that fear? So I think if we get more and more of those platforms, if there's more of that type of engagement with the support systems in place, I think, God willing, we should be able to move things forward very well for businesses in the future with COVID.
Thank you for mentioning the support systems. I'm going to ask one more question to both of you, if that's okay, and then we'll close. This has gone by so fast, can I just say? And there's so much more to ask, actually. The question is this, and I'll start with you, Vanessa. How can governments and businesses work together to create a thriving digital economy?
Oh, that's going to take another whole hour.
I know, I know. It's sad that I raised it at the last minute. Apologise.
Look, we just have to think grander than we ever have before. The opportunity for Aotearoa, especially to really take our products and services globally, think bigger than ever. I think startups, I think younger people, I think reinventing your business. Now is the time. And I think, gone are the days of people saying, is tech really a real thing? I mean, I grew up with a fax machine. It's here. It's exponentially taking off, and it's an enabler. It truly is an enabler. And I don't know, we've just got to take more risks. There's a beautiful pledge with Digital Boost here in Aotearoa to help our small businesses. Let's face it, New Zealand is a country of small businesses, who some of them didn't even have a website. So we've just got to take that step. And you know what? It's no longer costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can step things up so quickly. Get an intern, get a young person, get them to help you create what you think is the uncreatable or the unthinkable. Because guess what? Fast forward a year and you'll have a thriving business that is digital. So get on it.
Can I just say that was very good for someone who said they needed an hour. Hafimi, final comments from you, please.
I was going to be cheeky and say, well, just Google it, and I'm sure the answers will come out at some stage. But in all honesty, an open mind needs to be factored into everything, not just from us as business people, but from the government side, from the civil society, from just anyone in the community. Keeping an open mind and being able to undertake whatever you feel can work are two very crucial parts of being able to move forward. And I think this is something that we should impress very, very strongly amongst our young people and actually practice it so that they look at the examples and say, okay, my elders are doing this. I may not necessarily agree with them, but I'm keeping an open mind.
Thank you to you both. It's been a fascinating VIP dialogue. I really do appreciate it. To Vanessa Sorenson, the Managing Director for Microsoft New Zealand, and Hafimi Abdul Haadii, Executive Director of LVK Group of Companies. Thank you both very much. Tēnā kōrua.
Kia ora.
Thanks, Julian. Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa.
And to you, our attendees of the VIP dialogue, thank you very much for tuning in for this very special session. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa.